been chosen.
We are in the universe. Planets live inside the moon. A rocket ship can go to space. A rocket ship can go to the moon. Stop!
Hello, fellow truth seekers. So I figure now is a good time as any to finally work out the shape of the Earth. The shape of the Earth should be obvious, you would think. I mean, what we've learned all these years is that the Earth is indeed a globe. It's a spherical object that we could take flight to different points of, and when we go to those different points, we'll be in different faces of the globe. That's the obvious thing that we've all come to learn over the years. But I would say starting around approximately 2014, new thinking started to arise concerning the actual shape of the Earth. Or I should really say a re-emergence of previously popular older thinking. So I'll go ahead and use the resources available to me to determine if I could pin down with a degree of certainty our Earth's shape. If you are brave enough to research this topic, you are definitely walking on sacred ground to the YouTube Google control force. YouTube will be sure to put up a link to remind you that any investigation is considered an archaic conception. If you type in the term plane flights flat Earth, just inputting a simple search for information on the shape of the Earth will bring up a safety text box. This is courtesy of Google. They want you to know that your investigation is looking into concepts that are archaic in nature. They hope that you click on the link and learn more about Wikipedia's perspective. I would say the seed for my interest in the topic of the Earth's shape was planted years ago when I saw this curious documentary about NASA's trip to the moon. It was called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. I will play the relevant, very impactful segment.
Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over. Okay, Roger. We're mapping in on Earth.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private. Until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we were seeing. Thank you very much.
Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used. As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a
Just note that was Armstrong's voice. I'm not sure if you could recognize that.
TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible just off beyond the Terminator or inside the shadow.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window.
So, in short, that short segment changed my life. My suspicions of something improper were then corroborated later with this additional admission.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing.
So, you just saw there Buzz Aldrin, famous NASA astronaut for the Apollo 11, admitted that we, quote unquote, did not go there, did not go to the moon. Now, if you do a YouTube search for the term bubbles in space, you'll get a ton of official videos with astronauts playing with water in their space shuttle. This keyword is important, however, because if you look hard enough and long enough, you will find a video showing astronauts doing their missions and these anomalous objects, possibly representing bubbles. There's a bubble there. Something there. Notice these sights of casually moving slow objects shouldn't occur from the vantage point of these astronauts because they're traveling multiple thousand miles per hour. Then you have subject B, invisible chords in space.
Has massive technical issues and even larger plot holes. So many, in fact, it is difficult to know which to address first. Where do I start? Alphabetical? Chronological? Order of importance? The first one that springs to mind is probably the most ridiculous. It is what I like to call ISS hairspray. Remember, massive technical issues and even larger plot holes. So many, in fact, it is difficult to know which to address first. Where do I start? Alphabetical? Chronological? Order of importance? The first one that springs to mind is probably the most ridiculous. It is what I like to call ISS hairspray. Remember earlier when I said nerds watch everything? That now includes all footage from the International Space Station.
And yes, you have reels of this problematic footage that needs to be promptly explained by NASA. So far hasn't. This particular video I showed you is on iDiamond Truth Channel. Check them out. So, when you see segments such as this, and you're aware that there are hundreds of similar examples, which you've also seen, it's easy to develop a bias on a question regarding the shape of the Earth. specifically due to the concern of the honesty of the space organizations. If we can't trust the videography that's done in these space organizations, how can we trust anything else they say about the extraterrestrial environment? Now, a way to possibly dispute these findings I've shown you about the nature of space, one may dispute the authenticity of these films that are on YouTube. It may be concluded that this extra footage, which was shown by Bart Sibrel, is all somehow fake and produced by a social engineer with the intent of causing mass confusion. So that deceptive media I had showed you, I would describe as culturally transformative. But we must look at the whole picture, evaluating evidence that both supports and disputes a particular position on the appearance of the world. Determining the cosmography of the realm we call Earth is a rather complex task. Really, it is an issue of perspectives. You can look at Earth from the perspective that it is a type of simulation, and that as a simulation, it is made to appear a certain way to our eyes, simply because we are characters in the game. In the simulations we as humans create for entertainment, as you know, there are often errors in the programming that allow for the characters to fall through the map. And then at that point, the wall breaks and you're no longer in the artificial world space. You're in a programming space. Looking at this conception of the world from the perspective of a simulation, a 24-hour sun in the northern hemisphere can be expected from this vantage point at the North Pole. A 24-hour sun during the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere can also be expected from the perspective that the universe will adjust the light figures to such an extent that allows for the deception of a 24-hour sun to appear. It's simple programming for the observer. If you remove the local sun simulation concept and rely on a more physics-based construct, then such a sun would, on the surface, seem to be impossible. That sun I'm speaking of is the 24-hour winter solstice Antarctic sun. You can have the sun at some point here. The shadow of light would extend from here to here, but this portion of the Antarctic circle would have to be in darkness. Assuming there's a dome, which is somewhat similar to a magnifying lens, it can be demonstrated that light will curve around the lens. In this fashion, with light curving around, the concept of a winter solstice 24-hour Antarctic sun at least gets some additional support. Of course, one problem I have with this conception is there a guarantee that the person on the other side will see the ball of the sun? I mean, this person may see a ream of sunlight, but the sun is very far away. Will they actually see the ball of the sun? Those in these more northern climes will be in the dead of night and they will not see the sun. So why should an individual at the edge here be able to see the sun? An individual named Robert Swarz, last name is S-W-A-R-Z, uploaded a video on Vimeo that purports to be a time lapse of an Antarctic sun during the winter solstice. This time lapse covers a period of 5 days and would seem to confirm that such a phenomena is visible at that location. It is to date the only clearly legitimate video, well, actually I shouldn't even say clearly legitimate, apparently legitimate video that seems to support this phenomena. I've seen a few other videos which appeared to have been heavily edited. Any video with edits raises doubts of authenticity, as they can be edited in a manner that allows for looping to create the false appearance of a constant sun. Even in this less edited or apparently unedited video, edits are possible that can create such illusion too. I'll go ahead and play the video for you. You see a sun that's completely dead level in the sky, not rising or falling. This would be an effect that is achievable at the geographic South Pole. One thing I noticed is that the sun appears to get brighter at certain times. But this brightness does not appear to show day-to-day variation. Clipping from the beginning of this period of time and scrolling to the end of that period, you see that there is a difference in both the brightness and height of the sun, as well as the color of the sunlight shown. Towards the end of the video, where I am now, let me just pause it here. The sun is emitting a yellow-orangish glow and appears to be a little bit lower in the sky, beginning slightly higher, and the glow is not as yellow-orangish. We would note the landmarks. Get that landmark. So overall, I do see this as a video that would have to be taken seriously by the communities that investigate the shape of the Earth. I do a Google search of the term South Pole to see if I can find some of the buildings that were present in that video. Remember this particular structure? Now, can we find this particular structure in the video? For that particular structure, the answer would be no. Something else that should be noted is how bright the sky looks for these photos of the geographic South Pole. While looking for evidence, I found this interesting photo on a website called the Daily Great Discovery Channel Galaxy. There's an article titled "Today's Planet Earth Report: Hotspot is Melting South Pole to Multiple Pilots' UFO Sightings Over Ireland." So it's like a nonsense title, but the image is very interesting. I'm not sure what the location is. You see, perhaps looks like a possible body of water betwixt two areas of land. You can see the wing of an airplane. But this image here, it's like a beam of light that goes laterally and down. The first thing I thought of when I saw this is that this could be the edge of a glass dome with a kind of like a hot spot where the sun is shining over the dome. I'm going to return to this concept a little later. So the lighting for this video that purports to be at the South Pole is important because, as you see by the sun that traverses in a complete circle, this is supposed to represent the solstice, either the summer solstice in the north or the winter solstice in the south, assuming the globe model. So that means, assuming that this is the South Pole and we're at the winter solstice with the sun at the south, the sun should be at its highest point in the sky at the South Pole. However, over this 5-day span, the light appears to be dusk throughout the entire video. I'm at the very beginning of the video right now where it's at its brightest. Here's the image return for South Pole. Just note the brightness of day for some of these images. I have now searched the term North Pole. Now let's appreciate the brightness of the North Pole images. Okay, now one thing that pops out right away is that for the few of the images that show the sun is rather low set to the ground and it appears to be dusk. You have that here, you have that here, you have that here, and yeah, otherwise, oh, and here. Here's one shot of an expedition to the geographic North Pole. Just pay attention to the lighting for this particular shot. You see the sun's position in the sky. Here's a video that purports to show an expedition to the North Pole, specifically to a location called Franz Joseph's Island. So pay attention to the lighting for this particular clip. Let's see. So here's a good midday shot, and I would say the lighting is good and comparable to the bright lighting we've seen for pictures of the South Pole. So one of the arguments used by major proponents of the Earth being a globe is that it is supposedly very easy to schedule a trip to go to the South Pole to confirm for yourself if there is a 24-hour sun. So here's the main website for scheduling a trip to go to the South Pole. In order to go using PolarQuest, you have to enter a booking inquiry. An inquiry is like a question of, can I indeed go? This PolarQuest website appears to list various destinations. One of the destinations is Antarctica. You have the Great Penguin Adventure 2020 and a Fly to the South Pole 2020. Let's check out Fly to the South Pole. So you put that in as a destination, then you enter information. Here are the claims for South Pole debunked video. This is put out by Globebusters. So there's an Antarctic treaty area. Request to go to the area below 60 degrees latitude is processed by the U.S. Department of State, and it's done on a basis of expeditions. which requires an expedition organizer as seen in this form. This shows where the 60-degree parallel is located. This video goes on to show that distances taken from the 60th parallel at different locations to the geographic South Pole appear to show variation. Here's one comparison point, which is 2,030 miles. Another comparison point, which is 2,380 miles. Here's a chart showing the different distances for different points in the 60th parallel. So these comparisons are problematic to the underlying major narrative of the shape of the Earth, because logically speaking, given what we know about parallels on the Earth, those things we will also define as lines of longitude. Any point from a given parallel drawn to the geographic north or geographic south pole should be equidistant to another point drawn from a different portion of that parallel to the same location.
Daily around the Earth, somebody who is standing near the South Pole or in Antarctica would always see the sun coming from their northeast and heading off to their northwest, and so they would see something a little bit more like this image, which shows you exactly what I believe we are seeing. On the top there, I put a little view of what it would look like from Antarctica, and you can see the sun starting in the upper right and traveling to the left and heading out towards the northwest. Okay, so we now understand. Okay, let me show you what the difference between the two options would be. First, we're here at neve.com, and the link is in the description if you want to check this out. And for someone at the pole, this is what we should see. I'm in Antarctica. It's December 19th. And we're going to start moving the clock here ahead just hour by hour to see what the sun does, or should do on a globe. We're at midnight here, so we're pumping ahead to 2, 3, 4 o'clock. And you'll see the sun just does a 360 around the southern continent, which should be really evident and great proof of the globe. Show a couple video camera feeds or webcam feeds of that sun doing exactly that, and shadows making a 360-degree turn. And there's your proof: flat Earth, dead in the water. So here we have another globe perspective. So here we are at the South Pole. No way of faking this video, huh? But let's watch anyway and see. So we have some flags starting around 9 o'clock, heading towards 6 o'clock, and then they'll be heading up from 6 towards 3. Watch the tracks there in front of these small flags. Just keep an eye on those tracks here in a second and make sure you note where they're at. And we'll see that the front flags are rotating around almost to 3 o'clock now. The back flags look a little bit questionable, if they are even moving in a circle. And so now we're at 3 o'clock, so we're halfway there. We'll be heading towards 12 o'clock, but oops, here comes some bad weather. And what was that? They just took the flags. Alright, so those flags are gone, and you can look at the ones at the top that do look like they're moving, but if you look for the tracks at the bottom, looks to me like a completely different day. Certainly not proof of a 24-hour circling sun. Not by a long shot. It is required for 6 months of the year, and every single year. What sense would it make if we never get to see that phenomenon? Use your head here. What would that mean? To me, it means that it simply isn't the truth. That it isn't the case. We don't see what we're supposed to see. So what else are we supposed to surmise besides that what we're told is not the truth? We could look up here and watch the time, and you'll see we're at January 14th, and the time goes 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 21, 22, 23, 24, 1, 2, 3, 10, 11. So, watch the times. Again, the link to these webcam time-lapse videos is in the description. You can go watch them all yourself and see that you have been terribly fooled. Now, if we watch these shadows here on this purple flag, you'll see what I'm talking about the shadow starting out extremely long, getting extremely small, and then getting extremely long again, which again makes no sense on a globe model, makes all the sense on a flat Earth model, because the sun is coming from your northeast and far away, causing a long shadow, then it crosses the horizon, causing a short shadow, and then escapes to the northwest, which would again cause another long shadow. So I would love it if anybody, would tell me what reason could they possibly have for editing these webcam time-lapse videos in such a manner. Why not show us one complete day where the shadow simply does a complete circle? And
Here's a video on people who have gone to Antarctica.
Just a quick secondary screening to make sure we don't have the few hours, because we're going to be sailing through the Beagle Channel. It won't be till later tonight that we reach the Drake Passage, where things could get interesting.
Wow, that bird is huge.
Our first spotted wildlife.
Didn't see land again for 48 hours, which means we have a lot of time at sea. So there are some talks going on today about the wildlife that we're going to see and stuff. We're going to use our free time to show you around the rest of the ship. Hi, little penguin! Oh, he's so cute! Ooh, that's what we smell.
As soon as we walked outside, there's literally just a penguin swimming through the water.
Lone penguin, so cute!
Oh, everything is happy.
So my question is, do they merely swing by this tip of Antarctica without making landfall? Or do they actually go and make landfall? Spoiler, the video ends here. Here's another video I found which suggests a 60 degrees south limit of travel. Even from these latitudes, you should be able to acquire enough information to determine if the sunlight variation during the times of the solstices is similar for this degree location compared to 60 degrees in the north. A trip to Antarctica is not the same thing as a trip to the South Pole. Now, having the option to simply fly over Antarctica would be helpful in determining the true shape of the world. When I Google the term fly over Antarctica, this part appears, which states, while no airline has yet opted to fly over Antarctica en route to another destination, flights to and around Antarctica purely for observation are operated by Antarctic flights, departing Sydney, Brisbane, and Adelaide on the certain 747, lasting just over 12 hours. This article purports to give a reason why no planes fly over Antarctica. The white continent does not have much in the way of infrastructure, and herein lies why planes do not fly over it. Something called ETOPS governs how far from an emergency diversion airport certain aircraft are allowed to fly according to its model. In this article, a specific lower latitude flight that goes from Sydney, Australia to Johannesburg, South Africa is mentioned. It's called the contentious flight. It is considered to be the most southerly polar route. Actually, I must correct myself. The flight from Sydney to Santiago de Chile is actually considered to be the most southerly polar route. On YouTube, you can find a video that describes someone's trip using the this particular flight from Santiago to Sydney. This video does not show the whole flight, it just shows certain scenes from the flight. a continuous flight would need to be shown to demonstrate the duration of the flight. If the duration is short, that could prove conclusively that the Earth is indeed a globe. Someone on this video comments, I wanted to fly this route so badly but they retired to 747 before I was able to book. Rest in peace, Contest 747. And then a person who uploaded a video says, such a shame. I knew the Queen had her days counted with, you know what, just put the final nail in the coffin. To give you an idea of the biases of the uploader, one commenter says, but what about the flat land theory? Flying in the southern hemisphere. It's just that, a theory. A silly one, IMO. That's what he says.
Sydney to Santiago QF flight 27 that flew on the 25th of December. This is what the path of that flight looks like on a flat Earth map. And it does actually look strange because it's got this curved path, and you wouldn't think, oh, why would a flight want to go that sort of direction? But when you actually bring it in onto Google Earth, that data, you see it takes this pattern here. It's that line there that's going down past Antarctica. So you can see actually it's quite a straight route when you plot it on the globe Earth. The data drops out every now and again when it's not near a radar, but you can see there, yep, it's a fairly straight path. F27, and then you go to the page, and that'll show you a current flight that's actually happening, and then you can go and select one that's already finished.
So you see the duration of the flight.
And then you go view track log.
He goes on to explain how you can import latitude and longitude data using a spreadsheet and port it to Google Earth, which will then result in a solid line, which you saw earlier. Here in a comment section, an individual argues with the video uploader about the legitimacy of this particular flight path. The person creating this new controversy, he links out to another YouTube video.
It's around the southern hemisphere, and just trying to hop from continent to continent and finding out just how ridiculous it is. So let's follow these planes and see if we can move the plane. First, I'm starting in Australia, and I want to go from Sydney to Santiago, Chile, which Google Maps tells us is 7,000 miles. I've been using Fare Compare. Oops, wrong one. And you can use whatever you like. Just type in your to and from. Brings up all your flights, different carriers, and all your different scenarios here. So actually it looks like a lot of flights, but there's just 6 separate flights, and out of those there's only one non-stop, there is one stop, and then the rest are all 2s and 3 stops. So we'll check out this one, or non-stop, and it says it is a 7,000 mile flight, 12 hours and 40 minutes from Sydney to Santiago. But I don't think this flight ever takes off. It's available only Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday also, to kind of pinch you out and make you do something different. This flight to from Auckland, it says it's one flight there, and then a non-stop from Auckland. I checked those out already as well. That would be a 6,000 mile flight in 9 hours, or I think it's 11 hours actually. Actually, look at it. Here it is right here. Yeah, it's 11 hours 20 minutes for 6,000 miles. But I don't think either one of these 2 flights are real. They're just kind of there to keep guys like me from figuring this shit.
So, this is the thing that I worry about. What this individual says about a few flights appearing to exist but actually being completely contrived just to throw off researchers, this is unfortunately possible in this world we're living in. If you've been following all of the photoshopped nonsense, constant prevarication by the media, you will come to conclusion that mankind will go to whatever extent possible to pull the wool over the eyes of a fellow man. There is no limit to what we will do to prove a point or deceive somebody on a point. The media tries to make it seem as though major large-scale deceptions are impossible. But with what is known to have occurred in the Catholic Church, particularly in their depredations against children, we know that the worst imaginable things can also occur on a large scale. Let's continue.
Okay, so basically you can't do either one of these, which would only be 7,000 miles. Your next option doubles already. So you're looking at 13,000 to 15,700, and all of these flights up here are all going to United States airports. These are all United States airports. And then this YVR is Vancouver, Canada, and these are all Canadian airports. So basically, if you can't get one of these straight across flights, then your next options are either United States or Canada, which doesn't make any sense at all. And the time, holy cow, it goes from 33 hours to 55 hours, depending on what you end up with on these.
It's like a 22-hour range.
Let's just take a look at the maps. I mapped these out, and look, it just looks ridiculous what you have to try and do. You can't just go straight across. You have to actually get up into the northern hemisphere and then come back down. So that doesn't make any sense. So I mapped it on the flat earth map, and whoa, okay, now it makes sense. This is Sydney, Australia on the flat earth map. So yeah, you would want to stop at Vancouver or San Francisco or LA on your way, because it is on the way. Alright, the next one I checked out, let's see, was Johannesburg, South Africa to Perth, Australia. And I chose Perth just because it's the first city you would get to. It's a straight across shot from Johannesburg, which is right here, to Perth, which is right here. So, look at all the flights that came up here, and once again, we only have one non-stop, then two one-stops from Singapore, and then a bunch from Sydney, which are kind of strange. I'll show you that in a sec here. So let's just go to the maps. Alright, these are the routes they want you to take. There's three separate airports right in this little area. This is Dubai and Dahou, and not sure what that one is. This one's Hong Kong, this one's Singapore, and here's Perth right here. These two in black, this is the non-stop that they have to Perth, and this one's kind of a weird one. There's a little tiny island right here called Mauritius, and it's almost a straight shot, but it's got a 20-hour layover. So I don't know how many people would actually opt for that flight. But
now, just using your simple observation skills, you may be able to determine something is kind of off by looking at this. Now, perspective is a bit distorted because this is not a globe perspective. This is basically a Mercator projection type of perspective. So we want to fly here, but in order to get here, we have to fly north and then go south. Does that make sense?
The reason I put these in black is because I don't think they exist either. And then you got all these flights that go to Sydney, which is here. So, what, you're going to fly right over your destination, fly 2,000 extra miles, and then hop around to all these other cities before coming to Perth. So this is kind of a weird one I can't really figure out yet, especially when you look at the map, the flat earth map. All the other routes make sense because, yeah, it's on the way. Here's Perth, here's South Africa, all the stops are on the way. This is that Mauritius though, so yeah, I don't know, maybe. These are all the flights to Sydney, so it still looks like a pretty long shot to Sydney, but who knows, maybe this map isn't even correct, who knows, I don't know. Let's see, the last one I mapped was, I wanted to go from Cape Town, South Africa, to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and these are the routes they were giving me. And there wasn't, yeah, I could show you that. They don't even have a non-stop, so you don't even have that option to just go straight across. So all of your other options are here. You can go to the London, Amsterdam, Istanbul, Dubai again, but you can't go straight across. And then, yeah, there's a couple stops near Rio de Janeiro and another one over here. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, strange. And
there are other points to be made about how the Earth appears from certain altitudes. These issues rest upon the choice of lens for these types of adventures. This height is 43,000 feet. Or actually, no, it's about 29,000 feet. I think I can sort of perceive curvature here at the height of 39,000 feet. Let's go ahead and pause there. Making a judgment on the perception of curvature is difficult because there's a haze. Here's a stratospheric shot from that clip. I'm not sure what the altitude is. I would argue there is a degree of lens distortion, which is not helpful for these types of debates. Another somewhat interesting phenomena, besides that object right there, is when you look at the sun from this perspective does not appear to be very far away. Now you're either at an angle on the far side of Earth and the sun is in a process of setting, or you have view of the maximum height of the sun, which is only a few thousand miles away at the most. Now, some have speculated that the sun exists as two distinct light sources. There is a true source light that would exist outside of a dome, and then there's a smaller light that exists within the dome. This light we see as the larger light of the ball of the sun from our perspective on the Earth. This type of speculation rests on a notion that the dome itself is made up of a type of material that will be conducive to this unusual optical phenomena. There are a few other images taken. This image here, which demonstrates an icy snowscape with the sun showing an arc-like phenomena, presumably during a sunrise or a sunset. Another similar photo shows another Arctic scape with the sun also having an arc-like ring around it. The casual explanation for this optical phenomena is that it has to do with ice particles in the sky that creates a type of rainbow when sunlight shines through it. Here's a video of the 2017 Great American Solar Eclipse from a location in South Carolina. I took this footage myself. I show you this particular video because if you look closely at the light, this is the light of a partially occluded sun. There's a special geometry that's present if you look. What you see here is a type of rhombus. See that rhombus shape there? And the inner light also has a rhombus shape. Compare that to these pictures here. You have the 4 spokes of light as a point of comparison between these two images. For this image, with this particular illusion, you appear to have what looks like almost like a cross. That's not present in this image. I was able to obtain this particular imagery by video recording this sun just minutes before it was completely occluded by the moon. My speculation is that when the sun is partially occluded by the moon, the illusion of the ball sun starts to break down due to the occultation by the moon. If the illusion of the ball sun breaks down, that leaves the source light. So ultimately, my speculation is that the source light actually appears to be a type of rhombus. And by source light, I'm talking about this light here that's outside of the dome. So an immediate question that arises is, why would the source light create a ball that looks like a solid object? But the same type of question is, why does the moon appear solid? Why does the moon at times appear to have a strange wave that goes across it? The lunar wave phenomena is the clue. This thing with lunar waves really begs for extensive scientific inquiry, as it is possibly one of the biggest clues as to the nature of the terrain we call Earth. Of course, when discussing measurements on Earth, we have the phenomena of being able to use technology to record great distances and determine that there is no enormous wall of water that obscures our view as we pan back. The enormous wall of water would exist when trying to video record these distances on a curved Earth. While I think these arguments can support the notion of a flat, motionless Earth, I think ultimately the arguments are pointless if it can be determined that you can fly from locations at a latitude in the southern hemisphere for a similar duration of flight to those locations in the same latitudes in the northern hemisphere. If a continuous video of a 12-hour flight from Australia to South America can be recorded, then the whole debate, a debate of which hundreds of individuals have dedicated thousands of hours of their lives to arguing, the debate will finally be over. The other thing I can promise you is if those flight paths were recorded, they would have been posted to a platform like YouTube and would be ranked as one of the highest ranked videos for the search term Flat Earth flight paths. Because YouTube loves to rank debunking videos above all other types of videos for the flat earth concept, as you can see here. I desperately want to know that the cosmography of the earth, which I'd initially grown up with, is indeed the correct one, that the earth is a globe, and that everything that has been explained to us is as it is. But as you see, there is a paucity of direct proofs to establish that fact, and there are reams and reams of contradicting evidence. I would argue that this video is the best evidence that could exist for the transpolar flight from Australia to South America. This captain basically explains how those flights are risky due to the freezing point of the jet fuel. In a video, he shows this map which demonstrates a southern route from Australia to South America. Here's Antarctica down here. For the flat earth argument, this map necessarily has to be fiction. Flight times would be over 20 hours longer on an actual flat earth using this diagram. The title on this map is Argentina Nueva Zelanda. It basically translates to Argentina to New Zealand via distancia to, it becomes a distance from Argentina to New Zealand, which is 9,000 kilometers. Okay, so even though the subject matter of this video is Sydney to Buenos Aires, in fact, the map that's demonstrated here shows New Zealand and then South America. Here's a video about a guy who flew from Auckland to Buenos Aires. He created a 2-minute 58-second video titled Sydney to South America, Let 2017 Begin. So there's one image here which I think will be interesting in a debate. So here you have a photograph of a flight path. This appears to show a plane going along a northeastern trajectory up to Buenos Aires. Now I'll go ahead and play the video. So he shows where he is for that. So you see the location, and it matches with the outdoor scenery. This is a lot of photographic evidence saying he's in New Zealand. So, naysayers on the flat earth side may state that what is to say that as soon as the clip changes to him being on an airplane, that it's not in fact a different flight than the footage shown previously where he was in Auckland, New Zealand. And to that I say, you sort of have to take his word for it. So, you know, just keeping in mind that we're in a world where the Salomon Brothers building just sort of collapsed in on itself, any degree of acting is possible to create an appearance of something. So quite frankly, this entire flight could just simply be a phony flight with actors on it, and the display itself could be phony. So that's just the degree of what is possible based on what we've already seen before. I would say this video tends to lend some support to the notion that a flight from Auckland, New Zealand to Buenos Aires is possible. The one weakness of the video is for the screen portion, there isn't transitions from that server screen that showed the New Zealand currency to this particular screen with the map. If those transitions could have been shown in one frame of, well, not necessarily one frame, but you know, one portion of video without a cut, that would have added extra credibility. And also with the lighting was consistent between the two shots. Listen carefully.
Our flight to Buenos Aires, only about 12 hours till we get there, and we couldn't be more excited.
So there you go. I would say this guy looks trustworthy. He's probably telling the truth. Auckland to Buenos Aires, 12 hours, right? This guy is a vlogger. The vlog channel is Alesha and Jared Nematosaurus. Earlier in the video, he describes a mishap he had with his tent, which required inspection for bugs at biosecurity prior to his departure. So all in all, this doesn't look like any kind of live action roleplay video. It appears to be legitimate. This guy has I'll describe as a humble, small YouTube channel, beautifully illustrated with his wife, I presume his wife. Great logo, very well produced thumbnails for the videos. He has quite a few videos. Now, would all this be for a live action roleplay? I think not. So in this journey, I showed you just the complexity of trying to come to a conclusion with regards to the shape of the Earth. You have potentially bad actors in the space organizations who show you footage which has numerous contradictions and flaws, also including cutouts of the space shuttle window, bubbles, and what I showed you is really just the tip of the iceberg for that topic. So then you have to reconcile that information with a general lack of information with regards to a day on the South Pole. I did show you footage which appeared to demonstrate 5 days at the South Pole. And you have all these videos that seemingly try to increase the confusion over the matter. Remember the Tesla Roadster sent to space? Remember this picture of the Earth? Remember this picture of the Earth? Are all of these facts as we have been told? I think a single 12-hour flight from Australia or New Zealand to South America will end this debate right away. And so many individuals who describe themselves as flat earthers or just truth seekers, they can go about their merry way, finally having a complete cosmology. If they're able to show this extraterrestrial footage in a way that demonstrates stars appearing as objects are moving away from the Earth, specifically the stars in their constellations that would be expected, I think that can probably also end the debate. If I ever start traveling, I think I may go to South America just for the purpose of trying to prove this point. It should be quite feasible to get a battery that lasts 12 hours at least and connect it to a camera. This could be like a USB that goes to a large battery charger, sort of like those portable power stations. And then you just need a camera that can record for half a day. This is feasible by recording at a lower resolution and using external memory. Anyhow, yes, this was a very long video, but even in its length, it doesn't really cover the full breadth of the controversy about the shape of the Earth. So just restating my position, the lack of availability of continuous footage of a flight from one portion of the Earth in the southern hemisphere to another, that tends to support the notion of a flat Earth. But in contrast, you do have the availability of flights that can be purchased that some individuals on YouTube claim to have taken. These individuals, I see no specific credibility issues that would lead me to think that they're lying. We do have significant credibility issues with our respected space agencies due to plainly doctored footage. And it's this lapse of credibility with the space agencies that I think mostly feeds the controversy concerning the shape of the Earth. It seems like it would be such a silly controversy in this day and age where we have technology that can answer these questions quite definitively. The paucity of evidence seems to be overt. It's as if cosmically the universe itself won't allow the undebatable evidence to surface. Let's not forget the third possibility, that the Earth is a flat realm that is a simulation. It's simulated to appear as a sphere when traveling. This would then make shorter flights trans-Pacific in the southern hemisphere possible. It would also explain why the sun, moon, and planets adopt a spherical shape, suggesting the Earth also has a spherical shape. This would be to say the Earth is simply creating a series of illusions to get its inhabitants to think that everything is a spherical shape. If that's the case, the Earth might as well be a sphere in simulation or not, because even if simulated for all practical purposes, the Earth would be a sphere. I hope Globebusters discovers my video and tries to critique it and tear it apart. Be blessed. Bye.